I never thought my life would turn upside down so suddenly. For 17 years, I believed I had everything figured out: a loving husband, a beautiful daughter, and what I thought was an unshakable marriage. My name is Paloma, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes the people closest to us can become strangers overnight. Back then, my life followed a comfortable routine. I worked as an accountant at a trading company, crunching numbers and balancing books. It wasn't the most exciting job, but I was good at it, and it helped provide for our family. My husband Mark was a sales representative for a large firm, which meant frequent business trips. I'd gotten used to those absences over the years, even looked forward to his returns when I'd cook all his favorite meals. Our daughter Sarah was 15, a bright teenager who filled our home with energy. She was the perfect blend of both of us, Mark's charm and my determination. We lived in a modest but comfortable apartment, and I thought we were happy. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was to think that contentment could last forever. "When are you coming back this time?" I asked Mark over the phone during one of his business trips. It was a conversation we'd had countless times before. "Should be home by Thursday," he replied, his voice distant. "Don't bother cooking anything special." That should have been my first clue. Mark had always loved my cooking, especially after being away. But lately, everything had changed subtly. He'd come home from his trips different, distracted, thoughtful, almost cold. When he'd walk through the door, instead of the warm embraces I was used to, he'd barely acknowledge the meals I'd prepared. "Are you okay?" I'd ask him repeatedly. "You seem different." "Just tired from work," he'd say, brushing off my concerns. "It's nothing." I blamed it on a midlife crisis. That's what everyone talked about, right? Men hitting their 40s and going through changes. I convinced myself it was temporary, that everything would return to normal if I just gave him time and space. Sarah noticed it too, but we both stayed quiet, hoping it would pass. "Mom, Dad seems weird lately," she mentioned one evening while we were doing dishes together. "He's just stressed with work, honey," I replied, believing my own lies. "These things happen in marriage sometimes. It'll get better." I focused on being the perfect wife, thinking that if I just tried harder, cooked better meals, kept the house more organized, everything would go back to how it was. But life has a way of shattering our illusions when we least expect it. I remember that ordinary Tuesday evening when everything changed. I had just gotten home from work and was checking my social media messages while sitting on the couch in our living room. A message from someone I didn't know. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. "Hello, Paloma," the message read. "I think it's time we talked. I'm your husband's second wife." My hands trembled as I continued reading the message in our living room. Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. "I've been seeing Mark for 3 years now," the message continued. "We have a beautiful son together, the child he always wanted. I'm young, beautiful, and I make him happy in ways you never could." I felt sick to my stomach, but I couldn't stop reading. Then came the screenshots, dozens of them. Messages between my husband and this woman, revealing the ugly truth about his feelings for me. "I can't stand looking at her anymore," Mark had written. "She's gotten so fat and ugly. Being in bed with her is like sleeping next to a log." Tears blurred my vision as I scrolled through more messages. "Her cooking makes me want to vomit. The whole house feels suffocating. If it wasn't for Sarah, I would have left years ago." The final message from this woman felt like the ultimate slap in the face. "If you have any pride left, Paloma, you'll let him go. He doesn't love you anymore. He hasn't for a long time." The room started spinning. I remember trying to stand up, but my legs wouldn't support me. The last thing I heard was my phone clattering to the floor before everything went black. I woke up to Sarah's worried face hovering over me. I was lying on the living room floor where I had collapsed. Mom, can you hear me?" Sarah's voice sounded distant. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No, honey, I'm fine," I tried to say, but the words came out slurred. "The paramedics came anyway." They checked my vitals while I sat on our living room couch, Sarah clutching my hand. That's when Mark walked in. "What happened?" he asked, and for a moment, I saw concern in his eyes. Then he saw my phone on the coffee table, still open to those messages. "Is it true?" I whispered, looking into his eyes. "All of it?" He didn't even try to deny it. His face hardened, and in that moment, I saw the stranger he'd become. "Yes," he said flatly. "I don't love you anymore, Paloma. I haven't for a long time. I want a divorce." Sarah gasped beside me, her grip on my hand tightening. The paramedics tactfully stepped into the kitchen, giving us space. "How could you do this to Mom?" Sarah's voice shook with anger. "How could you?" "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," was all he said before walking out of the room. The next few weeks passed in a blur. I filed for divorce, going through the motions like a zombie. Sarah was my rock through it all, choosing to stay with me, despite Mark's attempts to convince her otherwise. He agreed to pay alimony for her without argument, probably the only decent thing he did during that time. Time moved forward, as it always does. Before I knew it, Sarah was graduating from high school. Mark and I split the costs of her college education equally. It seemed like the only civil interaction we had left. We both wanted the best for our daughter, even if we couldn't stand being in the same room together. Sarah chose a college in another city, and at first everything seemed fine. She called me regularly, telling me about her classes, her new friends, and life in the dorms. I lived for those calls, clinging to each detail she shared about her new life. But gradually, the calls became less frequent. When I tried reaching out, I'd get short, clipped responses. "Sorry, Mom, I'm busy right now. Can't talk, got a study group. Maybe next week, okay?" Each excuse felt like a small punch to the gut, but I told myself she was just busy with college life. Until she stopped coming home altogether. "Why don't you visit anymore, sweetie?" I'd ask during our increasingly rare phone conversations. "Just swamped with schoolwork, Mom. You know how it is." One evening, feeling particularly lonely, I decided to check her social media page. At first, nothing seemed unusual, just typical college posts about classes and friends. Then I saw it. Among her friends list was a familiar face, Mark's wife, the woman who had destroyed my marriage. My hands shaking, I clicked on her profile. What I saw made my blood run cold. There were dozens of photos of Sarah with Mark, his wife, and their son. "Happy family photos. Finally reunited," read one caption. "Complete family time," said another. In every picture, Sarah was beaming, hugging her father and his new wife like they were one big happy family. I felt sick. All those excuses, all those missed visits, she'd been with them the whole time. I took screenshots of the photos and sent them to Sarah with trembling fingers. Then I called her, my heart pounding. She answered on the third ring. Before I could say anything, she cut me off. "I was wondering when you'd find out," she said, her voice cold and unfamiliar. "Why, Sarah, why didn't you tell me?" "Because they're fun, Mom. They're rich and interesting. Dad and Lisa take me shopping, buy me designer clothes. He just got me a new car for my birthday. What do you offer? A boring apartment and your boring life?" Each word felt like a slap. "I'm your mother, Sarah. I raised you." "Yeah, well, I'm old enough to choose who I want to spend time with," she interrupted. "Lisa gives me money whenever I need it. They take me on vacations. If you don't like it, that's your problem." I sat there in my quiet apartment, staring at my phone through tears. First Mark, now Sarah. The two people I loved most in the world had both chosen the younger, prettier, richer woman over me. I curled up on my couch and sobbed, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. I desperately needed someone to talk to. That's when I remembered my father. We hadn't spoken in 15 years, not since that terrible fight about Mark. Dad had seen right through him, had warned me repeatedly, but I wouldn't listen. "He's not right for you, Paloma," Dad had said back then. "There's something off about him." "You just don't want me to be happy," I had shouted back. "You've never supported my choices." Those were the last words we'd exchanged before I stormed out of his house, choosing Mark over my father. Now, the irony of it all made me laugh bitterly. Dad had been right all along. With trembling fingers, I dialed his number, half expecting it to be disconnected after all these years. "Hello?" His voice hadn't changed at all. "Dad?" My voice cracked. "It's Paloma. I was wondering if we could talk?" "Come over right now," he said without hesitation. "I'll text you the gate code." "Gate code?" I wondered as I drove to my childhood home. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found. The modest house I grew up in had been transformed into a stunning estate. A security gate guarded the entrance, and the house itself had been completely renovated, at least triple its original size. Dad was waiting at the door, his hair grayer than I remembered, but his eyes just as kind. "Welcome home, sweetheart." "Dad, what, how?" I gestured at the house. He grinned proudly. "A lot can happen in 15 years. Come inside, I'll explain everything." Over coffee in what used to be our simple kitchen, now a gourmet masterpiece, Dad told me how he'd built a real estate empire from scratch. "I own about 30 properties in the city now," he said casually. "Both residential and commercial. Turns out your old man had a knack for business after all." Then it was my turn. I told him everything, about Mark's betrayal, his new wife and son, and finally, about Sarah's rejection. By the end, I was sobbing in his arms like a little girl. "I'm so sorry, Dad," I whispered. "You were right about Mark. I should have listened." "I forgave you long ago, sweetheart," he stroked my hair. "I'm just glad you're home now." After that day, I started visiting Dad regularly. It felt like making up for lost time. We talked about everything, his business, my life, our shared regrets. One evening, as we sat on his terrace overlooking the city, he made an unexpected proposal. "Come work for me," he said. "I need a good accountant for my company, someone I can trust. Someone who can learn the business from the ground up." "Dad, I don't know anything about real estate." "I'll teach you. You're smart, Paloma. You always have been. And maybe," he paused, "maybe it'll help take your mind off everything else." He was right. Learning the real estate business was exactly what I needed. Dad started teaching me everything: property valuation, contract negotiations, market analysis. For the first time in years, I felt truly excited about something. The numbers made sense to me, and the business strategies challenged my mind in ways my old accounting job never had. 3 years passed quickly as I immersed myself in learning the real estate business. I still checked Sarah's social media occasionally. That's how I learned she was graduating from college. There was no invitation for me to attend the ceremony. Instead, I received a brief message. "Don't come to graduation. Lisa says it would make her uncomfortable." The words stung, but they no longer surprised me. My daughter had made her choice clear: she wanted her father's new family, not me. The photos from her graduation showed her beaming between Mark and Lisa, her half-brother perched on Mark's shoulders. The perfect family portrait, complete without me. One evening, Dad invited me over for dinner. Something felt different. He was quieter than usual, more serious. After we finished eating, he led me to his study. "Sit down, sweetheart," he said, lowering himself carefully into his leather chair. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart clenched at his tone. "What is it, Dad?" "I've been sick for a while now," he said quietly. "Cancer. I've been fighting it for 3 years, but..." He shook his head slowly. "The doctors say I don't have much time left." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I had work to do," he smiled sadly. "I needed to prepare you to take over the business. That's why I brought you in when I did. I knew I needed time to teach you everything." I fell to my knees beside his chair, grabbing his hand. "Dad, no." "Hey now," he squeezed my hand. "Don't cry, sweetheart. We got these last 3 years together. We made peace. That's all I wanted, to know you were ready, to know we'd made things right between us. Now I can go peacefully." He was gone 3 months later. I arranged the funeral myself, trying to honor him as best I could. Through my grief, I sent Sarah a message. "Your grandfather passed away. The funeral is on Saturday. Please come." Her response came quickly and hit like a slap. Why would I care about some old man? Dad says he was nasty anyway. Not interested. I stared at the message in disbelief. The man she was dismissing had been ready to welcome her back into his life, despite her treatment of me. He had asked about her often, kept a photo of her on his desk. And now she couldn't even show basic human respect for his passing. The funeral was beautiful, attended by many of Dad's business associates and friends. Sarah's absence felt like a physical wound, but I stood tall, delivering the eulogy with all the strength I could muster. Afterward came the inheritance, the house I'd grown up in, now a mansion, the company I'd learned to run, all the properties Dad had accumulated over the years. His legacy, passed down to me. Everything Mark and Lisa flaunted their wealth with looked small in comparison. But I didn't want the mansion. Instead, I asked my assistant at the company to add it to our rental properties portfolio. I stayed in my apartment. I'd had it renovated exactly how I liked it, and it felt like home. My neighbors had become friends over the years, and the location was perfect for overseeing the business. 2 years passed quietly. The business thrived under my management, though my personal life remained empty of the one person I missed most. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang with Sarah's number on the screen. "Mom," she said, without any greeting. "I'm getting married. We'll come by next week to talk about it. Jake wants to meet you." True to her word, Sarah arrived at my apartment the following week with her fiancé. I watched as she entered, her eyes scanning my living room with barely concealed disdain. "Still the same old place," she muttered, running a finger along my coffee table. "Still living in dullness and poverty, I see." I bit my tongue, focusing instead on Jake, who seemed uncomfortable with her comment. I busied myself preparing coffee and setting out the pastries I'd bought for their visit. "So," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "tell me about the wedding plans." Sarah straightened up, suddenly animated. "We're planning something spectacular. Only the absolute best venues in the city will do. The ceremony will be in 6 months. That's wonderful. Have you found a place yet?" "We're looking," Jake said politely. "We want something really special." Sarah cleared her throat. "Actually, Mom, that's partly why we're here. Weddings are expensive, you know." "Of course," I nodded. "I'd be happy to help. I can contribute $10,000. Sarah rolled her eyes dramatically. "Well, I guess that's better than nothing. Lisa's already promised to handle my dress and the honeymoon." They didn't stay long after that. As the door closed behind them, I sank onto my couch, thinking about the irony of it all. With the success of Dad's, now my, company, I could easily finance 10 such weddings without blinking an eye. But Sarah's attitude, her constant digs about my poverty, her complete lack of interest in my life, it all held me back. "Let's see how this plays out," I murmured to myself. I waited for a wedding invitation, checking my mail every day. Nothing came. Finally, curiosity got the better of me, and I visited Sarah's social media page. There it was, a lengthy post about her perfect wedding venue. My eyes widened as I read the name of the ceremony hall she'd chosen. The Grand Plaza, one of the most prestigious event venues in the city. Also one of my properties. Finally, her post read. "Jake and I found the most amazing venue for our wedding. The Grand Plaza is absolutely perfect, so elegant and exclusive. Just need to sign the rental agreement and everything will be set." I couldn't help but smile. Sarah had no idea that her poor mother owned the very hall she was so excited about. She'd chosen it precisely because it represented everything she thought I couldn't provide: luxury, elegance, wealth. A week after Sarah's visit with Jake, she showed up at my apartment alone. Her expression was cold, practiced. "Mom, I need to tell you something," she said, standing in my living room, not bothering to sit down. "I won't be inviting you to the wedding." I felt my heart crack, but kept my face neutral. "Why not?" "Look around," she gestured dismissively at my apartment. "The wedding will be at this gorgeous hall. Important people will be there: Jake's family, Dad's business associates, Lisa's friends. You." She looked me up and down. "You're too simple, too poor. You wouldn't fit in." The cruelty of her words took my breath away. "But hey," she added, heading for the door, "you can still send a gift. Money would be best. I'll text you my card details." The door clicked shut behind her. I sat there for a long moment, then picked up my phone and made a call to my office. A week later, I walked into the Grand Plaza's executive office, where Sarah, Jake, and his parents were sitting with my property manager, ready to sign the rental agreement. Sarah was beaming, practically glowing with satisfaction, until she saw me walk in. "Mom?" Her jaw dropped. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, settling into the leather chair behind the desk. "The Grand Plaza belongs to me, along with several other luxury venues in the city. In fact," I gestured around us, "this entire company that manages these properties is mine." Sarah started stuttering. But how? Where did you get all this?" "Remember when I told you your grandfather had died? When I invited you to his funeral?" I kept my voice level. "The one you called some nasty old man? He left me everything: his company, his properties, his legacy." Sarah's face went from pale to red. Then, like flipping a switch, her expression changed to one I recognized, the same calculating look she'd worn when choosing between me and Lisa years ago. "Wait, if you own all this, then I'm your only heir. You have to give me the venue for free. And a wedding gift, maybe one of your properties?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Actually, I came here personally to deny your rental application." "What?" Sarah jumped to her feet. "You can't do that." "I can and I am." I stood up, gathering my papers. "I suggest you find another venue. And Sarah?" I paused at the door. "Maybe think about whether it's worth destroying relationships with people who truly love you just because they don't seem rich or important enough." "But Mom," Sarah's screams followed me down the hallway. "You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter, Mom." I kept walking, my heels clicking against the marble floor, drowning out her protests. For the first time in years, I felt truly strong, not because of my wealth or position, but because I'd finally stood up for myself. 3 days after my confrontation with Sarah at the Grand Plaza, a gold-embossed envelope arrived in my mail. Inside was an elaborate wedding invitation, the kind that probably cost more than most people's weekly salary. My phone buzzed with a message almost simultaneously. "Mom, I'm so sorry for everything," Sarah's message read. "I've been horrible to you. I've done a lot of thinking, and I realize now how wrong I was. I'm ready to cut ties with Dad and Lisa completely. We don't need them in our lives. Please come to my wedding. Please give me another chance." I sat on my couch, holding the invitation in one hand and my phone in the other, feeling an odd sense of déjà vu. The words were perfect, the apology seemed heartfelt, but something felt off. Then it hit me, this wasn't really about me at all. "When I chose your father and Lisa," I typed back slowly, "it was because they seemed to offer something better than what I had with my dad. More money, more excitement, more status. I abandoned someone who truly loved me for superficial things." Sound familiar? I waited, watching the 3 dots appear and disappear several times, before her response came through. "That's not fair, Mom. I really want to make things right." But I could see it clearly now. When Mark and Lisa had money and status, Sarah had chosen them. Now that she knew I was wealthy, she was choosing me. The pattern was painfully obvious. I didn't respond to her message. Instead, I placed the wedding invitation in my desk drawer, next to the photo of my father. The wedding date came and went. I spent that day working in my office, looking out over the city my father had built and I now managed. Sarah posted plenty of photos online. She'd found another venue, though not quite as prestigious as the Grand Plaza. She looked beautiful in her white dress, but her smile seemed forced. Sometimes I still check her social media, watch her life unfold from a distance. She doesn't post as many photos with Mark and Lisa anymore. I suppose the shine has worn off that relationship too. Occasionally, she still sends me messages, usually when she needs something, but I've learned to let them sit unanswered. I haven't given up hope for reconciliation. After all, it took me 15 years to understand what I'd done to my father, to truly regret choosing superficial things over real love. My dad waited patiently all those years, ready to welcome me back when I finally understood. Maybe that's my role now, to wait, to be ready if Sarah ever truly understands the difference between loving someone for who they are and loving them for what they can give you. Until then, I'll keep running the company Dad left me, living in my comfortable but modest apartment, and leaving the door open for the day when Sarah might come back, not because I'm rich or poor, but because I'm her mother,